new to this, and we're learning together. You want to breastfeed me, and that is just great. Some mommies don't make enough milk for their babies in the first several days, and some don't ever make enough. Mommy, I can't talk yet, but I will do my best to tell you if something is wrong. If I am crying and crying after nursing, please understand I am hungry. It is important to supplement to protect my brain from low blood sugar and jaundice, which can cause permanent brain injury. We will have plenty of time to learn breastfeeding together. I can't wait for all those cuddles with you. But please don't worry if I need more than your breast milk, because for me, being fed is best.
Breastfed is best indeed. Now, breastfeeding gives babies the best possible start in life. World Breastfeeding Week is celebrated every year from the 1st to the 7th of August all over the globe to encourage breastfeeding and improve the health of babies around the world. Now, the theme for World Breastfeeding Week in 2017 is Sustaining Breastfeeding Together. So today we discuss breastfeeding. We have an expert guest panel that will help us look at all aspects of breastfeeding, including the benefits of breastfeeding, the consequences of not breastfeeding, breastfeeding in public places, breastfeeding at the workplace, the rights and protection of the breastfeeding mom. Now, this panel is comprised of a delegation from the South African Civil Society for Women's, Adolescents and Children's Health, best known as SABC, represented by no less than 4 members that include its patron, its chairperson, and nutritional advisor. We also have a child health specialist from the National Department of Health, a specialist labor lawyer, and 2 breastfeeding moms who will share their experiences of breastfeeding with us. Now, you may want to be part of this show by asking the panel some few questions or simply just sharing your views with us. If you want to do that, the number to call is Johannesburg 714-6918 or 6919. You can also tweet us at SABC Health Talk or simply just interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is Health Talk.
When I was passing the casino, I said, that edge came, said, I'll just try, you never know. You might go home with 80,000, times 4 the amount that you have. And that stupid day, I lost all my money.
Never allow glamorous lifestyles to push you beyond your means.
The awakening moment was that 2007, when I left my children alone. I realized this is hurting me.
Ask for professional help if gambling is controlling you. Know when to stop.
I faced reality that, for you there's no quick reach, so you just have to work hard. So it's gone.
For all your uplifting stories, catch Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Phones, cloud systems, and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Imagine there was a way to save the lives of more than 800,000 newborns and infants worldwide every year. A way to cheaply and easily provide babies with all the nutrients they need to thrive and have the possibility of a lifetime of good health. Exclusive breastfeeding is a natural, simple, and cost-effective way to achieve just this. Research shows that breast milk delivers the exact nutrients needed to ensure the optimal health, growth, and development of a child. It contains all the essential elements needed to boost baby's immune system, reduces the risk of mother-to-child HIV transmission, benefits mom, and could reduce the possibility of obesity and type 2 diabetes later in life. Yet in South Africa, less than half of infants were exclusively breastfed in 2015. Breastfeeding has to be learned, and many women encounter difficulties at the beginning. Other realities such as premature birth, illness, or death also mean that mothers are not always able to breastfeed. PATH has therefore partnered with BHP Billiton Sustainable Communities and the South African National Department of Health to help improve the lives of mothers and children in the critical first 1,000 days of life. Across 4 districts in South Africa, the PATH Window of Opportunity project has raised awareness within communities on the value of exclusive breastfeeding and established support groups where moms and dads discuss the benefits and challenges of breastfeeding.
Bangitshela ukuthi uma ingane ngincelisa ihlala kanjani. Then uma usaqala iklinikhi khona ama test owenza eklinikhi. Uma uthola ukuthi u-HIV positive, ingane kuvumeleke ukuthi uyincelise 6 months. Uma uyincelisa lo 6 months le khona nomuthi abakunika wona ukuthi utreat ingane ukuthi igcine ingathelelekanga. Bangifundisa nakho konke lokho.
The benefit has been a heightened awareness in the staff. We tend not to now use formula, which we know obviously has got lots of complications when we are giving it to our very small babies. The second benefit is with the mothers. The greatest joy that you would see when a mother knows that at least their baby has had milk. It's comforting for them to know that while they were absent, the baby has been getting milk. And we would obviously now start introducing the idea of the fact that now that we've been giving baby donated breast milk, please, mommy, you need to also try and work with us in providing only breast milk for the babies.
This human milk banking project, coupled with consistently promoting exclusive breastfeeding, has helped to improve health outcomes in the district.
So the impact that we have seen within the Department of Health and specifically in our Utungulu district is our exclusive breastfeeding rates have been increasing and our deaths related to severe acute malnutrition has significantly decreased.
Together, PATH and BHP Billiton are pleased to be helping to save and improve the lives of South Africa's most valuable assets, its children.
So sweet. Huh? All right. So we're going to learn more about breastfeeding. And with me in studio is a delegation from SABC, the South African Coalition for
Women's, adolescents, and children's health.
Yeah, she says it. Okay. So it's a mouthful. So for this show, we're going to say SABC. And if I say SABC, you know what I'm talking about. All right. And let me start with the lady at my extreme right. She's the chairperson of SABC. And Sue Jones, who's also program manager at Save the Children South Africa. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you,
Sue. Right. And next to her in the middle is Dr. Tsepo Motsepe. Dr. Motsepe is the patron of SABC, and Dr. Motsepe is also, has a long CV. She qualified as a medical doctor and went on to study a master's in public health at Harvard School of Public Health, specializing in maternal and child health. And she has a whole host of other accolades that I'm not going to go into now because otherwise it'll take the entire show. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next to Dr. Motsepe is another special guest, Chantel Witten. Chantel is the nutritional advisor for Saxo Watch, and she's also lecturer at University of Northwest, and in the Department of, you must say it again?
Physiology.
We're in the School of Physiology, Nutrition and Consumer Science.
Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right. Perhaps let's start with you, Sue. We introduced this organization, Saxo Watch. Just tell us a bit about this organization or coalition, as it were.
Okay, thank you. And it's a pleasure for us to be here today, so thank you for inviting us. So Saxo Watch was formed about 2 years ago during the consultation for the global strategy for women, adolescents and children's health. Dr. Motsepe very kindly became our patron, so we're very honoured about this, to have her support. Yeah. And we've really been building momentum over the last 2 years. So we have 24 members who are civil society organisations. Yeah. I chair as Save the Children, Path also chair, and also the South African Breastfeeding Reserve. And as I said, we have 24 members.
And so, what's the main objective of the organization?
Yeah, the main objection of the coalition is collective advocacy. So we work across women, adolescents and children's health. And we've chosen specific themes for the next year. So nutrition obviously is one of those. That's why we're talking about breastfeeding, but also sexual and reproductive health, and then child development. So we're very, very strong on the breastfeeding agenda, and obviously this is a great opportunity during World Breastfeeding Week to talk about breastfeeding, and we've really taken it upon ourselves to really push breastfeeding in the workplace because it's such an important issue for us.
Great stuff. Dr. Motsepe, let me get on to you. I mean, clearly this is an important subject, and it's good that we do this at the start of Women's Month. To highlight women's health issues, and this is one of them. Even though, I mean, obviously it's directed at the child, the baby. Let's talk more about breastfeeding now. For people watching this program, they might be wondering, but so why should we even be talking about breastfeeding? What are the benefits of breastfeeding?
In any child's life, the foundation has to be right. In this case, breastfeeding is the optimal choice of feeding for any child up to 6 months. It is recommended that children should be breastfed exclusively, meaning not given solids or other substances for the first 6 months of life. Thereafter, once solids are introduced, mothers should continue breastfeeding their children up to 2 years. There are benefits. In the first 3 months of life, the child's natural defenses have not yet developed, and this is supplied by the mother's milk. The child the baby is protected from the risk of diarrhea, which can have very, very serious side effects. It's protected from ear infections, and it receives all the good fat, the essential fatty acids that are supplied by the mother's milk. They are good for brain development. That is why children who are breastfed perform much better than children who are not breastfed in later life. The child also learns to regulate its appetite in later life. And of course, the bonding. Yeah. In the case of the mother, who is really the person who should be breastfeeding, it has benefits for her immediately after birth. It is recommended that the child should be put to the breast because the sucking promotes limiting the bleeding that occurs at childbirth. The mother is also protected from the risk of cancer of the breast if she breastfeeds, and cancer of the ovaries. She's also protected from arthritis and osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is where with age the bones become weaker and they are fragile and they break easily. Apart from that, breastfeeding helps to maintain the weight. The mother has serious benefits from breastfeeding. It's convenient, it's free, it's cheap, it's easy to make. There's also the psychological benefits to the mother from breastfeeding.
Very interesting.
And we recommend it seriously. It's not just the benefits for the child, it's also the benefits for the mother.
For the mother as well?
Yes.
Perhaps let me bring you in here, Chantel. Clearly, these are medical benefits. Surely there's other benefits, social, economic, and so on. Do you want to just perhaps take us through all of those?
Absolutely, Salo. So, as we know, breastfeeding is a social experience. So, it's a mommy and a baby within a family. So, it is also about bonding with a family and the family being a support. It's also for breastfeeding as a intervention for child, lower medical costs for the children who are not being breastfed and are being fed other, maybe formula, other foods, lots of teas. These children tend to have the conditions that Dr. Matsepe talked about. So more diarrhea, more pneumonia, and therefore you're spending more money on clinic. You're going to the clinic, so you're spending on transport, you're spending on medicines, you're spending time away from work. So it has a huge cost on the family as well in terms of resources. If a country doesn't breastfeed, now South Africa is one of the lowest breastfeeding countries, our economic development is put at risk. So those countries that are investing in breastfeeding, they tend to grow economically as well. So it's not just the health benefits, it's the social benefits where we have a caring, sharing environment and we have the economic development.
It's interesting that she mentioned, the country South Africa. I mean, the reason why we're promoting breastfeeding is the concern that the levels of breastfeeding are a little low. You want to comment on that, Sue? What are the patterns like? I mean, have we seen improvement over time?
We have seen some improvement. So the South African Demographic Health Survey was conducted in 2003. At that time, the rate of mothers breastfeeding between the age of 0 to 6 months, cumulative over that time was about 8%. Now, the survey was done last year, we're now looking at around 32%. So it has improved to a certain extent. But the number of mothers breastfeeding at 6 months exclusively is still very low. So there's still a lot of issues in South Africa that are preventing mothers from exclusively breastfeeding.
I guess we're going to tackle that and see how we can improve that. But just lastly, last 30 seconds or so, what are the consequences of not breastfeeding? Any one of you can tackle that.
The consequences, as Dr. Matsepe said, the health consequences is the biggest challenge we have. So if you don't breastfeed, your child is at higher risk of dying. The consequences of not breastfeeding means you're spending more money on alternative feeds. That's not only the formula you need to buy, but it's the bottles, it's the electricity to heat up the water. So economically, you're spending more money. And as a country, if we don't have a breastfeeding country, we are losing brain cells. So as Dr. Matsepe said, the more we breastfeed, the more cognitive development we have. So we don't want to lose our children's true potential. So that's why we want to invest in breastfeeding.
Right.
Can I add?
And I'm sure many people out there would like to breastfeed, and some may be, wondering, okay, sometimes it may not be possible for people to breastfeed. What are the possible barriers to breastfeeding? That after the break. Please stay with us.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
I went away, had a baby. When I was due to come back to work, I just sort of asked them if I could get a facility where I could express, seeing that my son was at home. And that was made possible. Until this day, I'm still expressing 13 months later, and it's been great so far. What's happened is, because of the layout of the disabled loo, it was just probably practical. So what they then did was, if I was here in the morning and I needed to express in the morning, it would be sort of demarcated for my usage until I was done, and then people can carry on using it. If it was in the afternoon, then arrangements were made appropriately. Alternatively, I could also use the shower, which also just served the purpose. The other advantage was the fact that soon after I told my mom I was pregnant, she then bought me a small fridge, and that's where my expressed milk is kept. So it doesn't get to affect people's usage of the fridge in the office. And the one other thing is that obviously I can use the microwave to sterilize my bottle.
There was another mom sharing her experience with us on breastfeeding. We're going to learn more about that. And yes, we still have with us in our Joburg studio Chantel Whitten, nutritional advisor for SABC, Sue Jones, chairperson of SABC, and we're joined by another special guest, Dr. Leslie Bamford, who's a child health specialist from the National Department of Health. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Bamford.
Thank you.
All right, before we carry on with our discussion, we have two calls on the line. First up is Endu from Johannesburg. Welcome, Endu.
Great, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I just wanted to find out on breastfeeding, I want to know the minimum period that the mother should breastfeed the baby, and that the fact that now most mothers, they are working. How can they balance breastfeeding?
Very good question. Thanks for your question, Andy. And we have another Anonymous in Johannesburg. Anonymous, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Okay, so my question is, I'm not sure if it's technical or not. So I'm a mom. My baby's 4 months old.
Yeah.
I'm back at work, so I work in a very stressful environment. I had quit smoking during my pregnancy, but I've started smoking again now that I've gone back to work. I am breastfeeding, so I'd like to know what effects does the smoke have if I breastfeed it. I only breastfeed when I'm at work, not at home with baby, or smoke when I'm at work, not at home with baby.
Right. Two excellent questions. Thank you very much, Anonymous, for your questions. Two very good questions. I mean, we're going to touch on the issue of, the workplace, but perhaps you want to comment on the last one, the effects of smoking on the baby and breastfeeding.
Well, smoking is not a reason not to breastfeed, but we certainly would advise mothers not to smoke for their own health, and certainly not to smoke in the baby's presence, because smoking is very unhealthy for babies, and it can lead to problems with breathing and to an increased risk of conditions such as asthma and respiratory infections, pneumonia.
All right. Okay, so basically, we discourage smoking. There should not be any reason for smoking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question, I mean, is a very good one, and I think it's relevant to what we're going to be discussing now. That there are obviously barriers to breastfeeding, but perhaps as a direct answer to his question, his question is, okay, what is the maximum? Was it the maximum period you asked about? Okay.
The minimum period.
The minimum, and we might as well talk about the minimum and the maximum. Chantel, would you like to take a step at that?
Okay, so as earlier said, we want to promote and support exclusive breastfeeding. So that's only breast milk, nothing else for the first 6 months.
Right.
And then we would want moms to be supported so they can continue to breastfeed from 6 months, and we say up to 2 years. But if you choose to go longer, there's no problem. So if we really want to say the minimum you should give your baby breast milk, we would say to 2 years. That's the minimum period.
Right. Okay. So let's come back to the subject now that I want us to talk about, the barriers. So people would like to breastfeed, but for some people it may not be possible. Perhaps if I could start with you, Dr. Bamford, on the medical, are there any contraindications for mums to breastfeed?
There are very few contraindications. So I think when we look at the barriers, we know that for a mother to successfully breastfeed, and as we've said, to have the maximum benefit, that needs to be exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, followed by breastfeeding for 2 years. That mother needs to want to breastfeed, she needs to believe in breastfeeding, and she needs to be supported. And she needs to be supported in a number of different ways. She needs to be supported by her family, she needs to be supported by the healthcare system, she needs to be supported by the community at large, and if she's working, she needs to be supported in the workplace. I'll talk a little bit about the support that she needs within the family and from the healthcare system. We know that initiating breastfeeding can be difficult for some mothers, particularly the first time that they breastfeed an infant. If they are not supported to feed the child correctly, so to make sure that the child is held correctly and is attaching to the breast correctly, that can result in problems, sore nipples, etc. But really I would like to stress that if mothers are supported to position and attach the child correctly, then they will not experience those problems.
All right.
So that's really the role of the health system, but families need to support mothers to breastfeed.
Right.
We hear stories that mothers, mother-in-laws, husbands
So there's other
are
societal
dubious
barriers now.
about breastfeeding and sometimes feel that their child would be better off being formula fed.
Right. Well, let's take on the society. I mean, you've started on that, and any one of you can take a step at this. There's certain belief systems. I mean, she just mentioned that some mother-in-law or some aunt or whoever might have certain belief systems. Are there any other that are often barriers to breastfeeding?
I'll take that. So I think in respect, just adding on to what Leslie said, I think sometimes some of the beliefs are that the child should be weaned a lot earlier because breast milk is not enough. I mean that's really entirely not true, and that creates a lot of problems with undernutrition. So yes, I think that's one clear reason why sometimes breastfeeding doesn't work. Let's look at the wider society. So it's really shocking that mothers are actually shamed in breastfeeding in public spaces. And there are retailers who have been known to put up signs saying, do not breastfeed in this place. I mean, I won't name them, but this has happened. So one of the key things is that society or that people see it as a social norm, because breastfeeding is a social norm. And mothers should be allowed to breastfeed really wherever they want because they need to breastfeed and the baby needs the nutrition.
So is there anything that precludes mums from breastfeeding in public transport, in parks, and so on?
It's generally the society's attitudes that put moms off. So the sneering, the sniggling, the looking at her, making her feel uncomfortable, that's really the pressure moms are experiencing. There are bylaws where if you are breastfeeding, they might say it's indecent exposure. But nobody's actually gone to court using the bylaw. And then, of course, as Sue said, these private entities, it is private space. So sometimes they take it upon themselves that this is my private space and I'm making the rules here. But I think as a society, we need to put our voice to that and say we support breastfeeding. The Minister Motsoaledi has declared us a country that supports breastfeeding back in 2011. It's 2017. So surely as society we need to come on board and we need to have this positive attitude towards breastfeeding.
What about the issue about, formula feeds? Some people would say formula feeds are a lot better, than breast milk because they've put in lots of other nutrients in there. Your response to that?
So perhaps I can answer that. So formula feeds, although they have been modified, are all based on cow's milk. And cow's milk is excellent food for baby calves. It is designed for young cows. Women's bodies are amazing, and they provide the exact nutrients in their milk that human children need. So whatever is added to formula milk, it will never approximate and be equal to human milk. In particular, it was mentioned, human milk contains antibodies. Formula cannot contain those antibodies.
Right.
So the real value that breast milk has in protecting young children from infection cannot be matched in any way by formula.
Breast milk is always best. Never. Okay. Obviously, in that clip, there was this introduction around, breastfeeding at the workplace. But I'd like us to just keep it at the back of our minds, because we're going to talk about that in the next few segments. So time for another quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on breastfeeding. Please stay with us.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the words of our sacred texts? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Why is there a dispute over who is the rightful heir to the throne?
What I can say is that Masindi is a woman. She's a girl. She's a girl child. Because I think that if she was a male, there's no way that anybody was going to dispute the fact that she is the rightful heir.
Do you recognize her as your rightful heir?
Yeah, no, I will definitely say that she is my daughter. She grew up there.
What is the intention?
I want my throne.
Join me in Port Zedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
My name is Nontlanhla Dubazane, and I'm 29 years of age, and I live with my parents, my mother and my dad. I was very happy when I found out I was pregnant, and at the very same time they told me that I'm HIV positive. It was very, very bad, and I thought I was going to lose my baby. In my mind, I was thinking that I'm going to die. My baby's name is Anza. In Zulu it means Mpendulo. Sonto from mother to mother told me to give my child to be negative. They said I must breastfeed my baby, not mix feed, until 6 months. When he was 3 months, they test him in the feet, they take the blood. And then I come back and I get the results. I found out my baby was negative. When I breastfeed him, I hold him, he talks to me, touch my face, he kisses me. As a single working breastfeed mom, I have to express. Expressing is hard because I I have to work and I become tired. So I will tell the other mothers, keep on pushing with the breastfeed. Breastfeed your baby. You'll see your baby will be more healthy.
Welcome back. We're talking breastfeeding, and thank you so much for staying with us. If you've just joined us, well, the topic is breastfeeding today, and we have two special guests in our studio. First up, on my extreme left, Thandiwe Malefu, who is a breastfeeding mom who's going to share her experiences with us. Welcome to Health Talk, Thandiwe.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And next to Thandiwe, we have Anna Hansel, who's also a breastfeeding mom and also here to tell us her, give us her experiences. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you.
And in our Cape Town studio, we have Michael Bagrain. Michael is a specialist labor lawyer who's obviously going to give us the legal perspective of what we're talking about. Michael, welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to come back to you now. Before we start our discussion, we have Shannon on the line from Cape Town. Shannon, welcome to Health Talk. Shannon, are you there?
Yes.
Yep. Welcome.
Hi. My question is, I am on maternity leave for 6 months, and when I go back to work, I unfortunately won't be able to breastfeed. So I want to know, what is the other best thing to give my baby while she's at home?
Okay. Excellent question. Thank you very much, Shannon. We're going to get the experts to answer your question just in the next segment, because for now, I'd like us to chat a little bit to Thandiwe. Thandiwe, you're a breastfeeding mom.
Yes.
And thank you so much for, accepting our invitation, for instance, for you to share your story with us.
Thank you.
Just give us your experience.
Okay. Thank you so much, first and foremost, for giving me the opportunity to actually talk to other moms and encourage them in this journey. Mm-hmm. So a special thing happened for me while I was pregnant already, that my colleagues, a lot of people just gave me so much advice. Right. So much advice came from my parents, from family abroad, at large, the community, as well as the people I work with. And I learned so much about, again, the benefits of, breastfeeding, what it does for the child, and the rights that you have at the workplace as well. Someone also told me that when you come back, you actually are allowed 30 minutes each, twice a day, to express for your growing baby. So you can express while at work, keep that in the fridge, and fortunately my employer actually provides those services. They provide you with a facility that has electric sockets and a fridge and so forth, and you can keep your milk there and you can fetch it as soon as you need to go home.
Was it your first experience in breastfeeding?
It was my first experience in breastfeeding.
What did it mean to you? I mean, when did just describe that first moment when the baby started sucking?
It's special. You cannot describe it. I think the bonding that you get with that, the benefits that you see, the relationship that you grow with your baby right there and then is just amazing. The reliance your baby places on you from just that time you spend with them is irreplaceable. And I think for me it was important as a working mom, knowing that I will not be available to her the entire day when I'm at work, that I have these moments of bonding when I come back.
We'll come back to breastfeeding, but just tell us about your maternity leave. How long was it and how did you time it? And yes. And also, I guess the related question is, how long did you breastfeed your babies exclusively?
All right. So my maternity, we are allowed 4 months paid leave, and then you are allowed per legislation 6 months. So I took the 2 months unpaid. So you already planned for that. You have 9 months to plan for that.
Right.
So I already started saving up for the unpaid leave because I knew I wanted to exclusively breastfeed. I exclusively breastfed my daughter. So luckily, the minute I went on maternity, a week later, I gave birth. So I had 5.5 months with her. The time I went back to work, she was 5 months, 3 weeks. So she was exclusively breastfed for that period. No water,
very lucky
nothing
baby.
else. Very lucky baby. And I continued to express the milk until she reached the age of 6 months. And that's when I started introducing
Just tell us
solids.
about that at work. So you were given this extra 30 minutes. Just tell us, how does it work?
How it works is, obviously it's an arrangement between you and your manager, because obviously you need to work around meetings, your timelines. You cannot be missing work for, to express. So I had arranged with my manager to say, listen, I will need to express twice a day for my baby for this, well, obviously for the week per legislation. And after that, obviously, then it's a conversation between you and your manager, because that's then not protected by legislation. And I was allowed the 30 minutes twice a day to go to the expressing room and, express as...
Sounds like you had a very good environment there.
It's a very good
let's
environment.
get your perspective, Anna. Tell us your story. First of all, was it your first experience?
Yes, so my little girl was my first experience. I took 4 months maternity leave. I went back after 4 months. She was exclusively breastfed until 6 months. So when I went back to work for those 2 months, there was no place for me to express my milk. I work in a factory environment, so there actually was no room for me to be given a space. And I do understand that because it is a very different environment in which I work. So I would go up into our storeroom. I would lock myself away in the storeroom.
Why did you have to lock yourself?
Well, I didn't really need anybody walking in while I was busy expressing my milk. But people knew that that's what I was doing, and they were incredibly supportive of it. And it was a wonderful experience. I could express my milk for my baby. I would sit by the window, listen to music on my phone, and I expressed the 2 30-minute sessions that I needed to every day, and I could take the milk home to my little daughter. I was very lucky. I managed to continue doing that up until 9 months. So I had an extra, a longer period where she continued to get the milk. And I think my story is that there was no space, but I had to make the space. And I got given the support because I asked for it. I think very often what happens is the employers don't know about it, but it was up to me as the mother to say to my employer, this is what I'm entitled to and this is what I would like. And it was a conversation between my employer and myself as to how we were going to make it work best for both of us.
All right. I'll tell you what. I know we have Anonymous on the line, but Anonymous, please just hold on 1 second, because I'd like us to go to Cape Town and speak to Michael. Michael, we're obviously having this very interesting discussion here around what happens at the workplace. Firstly is the issue of maternity leave that I'd like you to comment on from a legal perspective. Some employers are prepared to give that 2 months unpaid leave, some are not, and it appears that there's no consistency. And secondly, I'd like you to just comment on the rights of the breastfeeding mom at the workplace.
Thank you. Yes, the first, both of them are in fact controlled by the legislation. The legislation is the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Labour Relations Act. As we all know, Labour Relations Act does give a certain amount of fairness to both the employer and the employee. But the bottom line is it's absolutely controlled in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, where maternity leave is 4 months. And that is pretty well known at the workplace. Most employers understand and respect and actually adhere to the maternity leave, that 4 months of the maternity leave. Many companies, of course, and especially the bigger ones and more organized companies, grant 6 months or anything up to a year. I've got a client that gives a year's maternity leave. Maternity leave in terms of the legislation is not paid. It's paid by the Unemployment Insurance Fund unless there is an agreement with the trade union at the workplace or the work puts it in your contract of employment. And then mothers can actually access some money. You can't access the UIF if you're getting the full salary from the employer, and that's controlled by the UIF, and they have a formula as to how much money you can get from them. So that's actually not the problem. I think the maternity leave itself is well respected and fully understood. There are lobby groups that are pushing for longer maternity leave, and I understand that and I respect that. Most of the developed countries in Europe have got much longer maternity leave, and that we fully understand as well, although that's not being debated too much. I know many of the trade unions, when we have our annual wage negotiations, one of the demands is for greater pay during maternity leave, and especially in women-friendly environments, and also factories which are populated more by women than by men. The real problem is the second question that you've put to me, and that is breastfeeding. I'm listening to your two guests, and I I marvel at their experiences because it's great. I've been practicing this labour law for 35 years, and I must tell you, when I was approached 6 months ago to look into this problem of breastfeeding at work and expressing, quite frankly, I hadn't even read the code. There's a code of good practice on the protection of employees during pregnancy and after birth of the child.
Right.
And we've got very forward-thinking legislation. It's great. It's fantastic. South Africa is well known to have some of the best labour laws in the world. We have a golden thread running through all our labour laws, and that is fairness and protection of staff, and in particular women, pregnant women and women after having given birth. And we've got this code. Now, the code, when you read it, is superb. It reads like a dream. Yes, I am hearing that you need to maybe improve the code a little bit and tweak it here and there, but it is a good code. I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that employers haven't read the code. A labour lawyer like me knew about the code, had never actually been faced with the issue, and had never read the code. Now that I've read it, and I've been asking companies about it, most of the employers that I speak to in South Africa, and in particular here in the Western Province, have not heard of such a code. One fellow in a small business said to me, am I joking with him? And I said, no, certainly not. I said, have you never been faced with the issue? He said, no one's ever asked him. And then you start asking questions of clients, and I actually did a survey of clients of about 100 companies, small companies, under 50 employees each.
So Michael, I'm
not
afraid
one of them.
we're going to be running soon after, out of time. But just to hurry you, but clearly what you're saying is that, breastfeeding mums do have rights. What the problem is that, employers don't know about this in the first place, and that, these rights are not conferred to breastfeeding mums. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the Department of Labour also, when we investigated, couldn't actually give me someone who knew about it, implemented it, and whether the inspectors ever had a chance to try and implement the code. So we have it right across the board. The trade unions don't know much about it. The Department of Labour knows very little bit about it. And employers are ignorant.
Well, Michael Brains, specialist labour lawyer, thank you so much for your time. And back here, and we have Thandi Way, of course, Malefo and Anna Hensel. Thank you so much for your time. But before you go, let's listen to Anonymous on the call from Johannesburg. Anonymous, welcome. Anonymous, are you there? We can hear the baby.
Yes.
Yeah. Your question, please.
My question is, I'm HIV positive with a high viral load and low CD4. Can I breastfeed my baby?
Good question. We're going to get the experts answering that question for you. Thank you so much for your call. And I believe we also have one tweet that we're going to just go over very quickly. If you could just get it up on the screen quickly. Tembara Julie says, society's attitude affected my wife's view of breastfeeding. All right. I think that's it. That's all the time we have in this segment. I want to thank you both ladies for sharing your story with us, and wish you well in your raising of your babies.
Thank you very much.
All right, time for another quick break. When we come back, we now have a final segment of this discussion on breastfeeding. Please stay with us.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
Today on Rights and Recourse, we will unpack the new traditional court bill.
The idea of the bill is not to overregulate, to basically set the principles.
The most important aspect of this bill is that it understands that customary law by its nature is consensual, that I have a right to affiliate, I have a right therefore to opt in, and I have a right to opt out.
The opt-out provision is basically one that you've got to respect the court in the sense of if you've been summoned, you've got to tell the clerk of the court at least that you're not willing to attend.
The challenge that I would like to throw to the Department of Justice, it has to come up with mechanisms of ensuring that people who exercise their right to opt out or to opt in are not in any way victimized.
Hashtag Rights with Dumila Mates on legal issues every Sunday at 2 o'clock Central African Time.
Welcome back. We're talking breastfeeding with my two guests in the studio, Dr. Tsepo Motsepe. Dr. Tsepo Motsepe is patron of SABC, and I might as well mention that Tsepo Motsepe is also our second lady. She's wife to Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. And next to her is Dr. Leslie Bamford, who is a child health specialist from the National Department of Health. And in our Cape Town studio, we're now joined by Patricia Martin, who's also a member of SABC. Patricia, welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right. In this segment, we're going to be talking about the way forward. You know, having listened to all aspects of breastfeeding, from the benefits of breastfeeding, the consequences of not breastfeeding, issues around, public and societal attitudes towards breastfeeding moms, breastfeeding issues at the workplace. We now need to say, okay, what's the way forward? How do we encourage breastfeeding? How do we ensure that the rights of breastfeeding moms are protected at the workplace? And how do we change public attitudes? All right. With us here, of course, is our studio guests that I introduced. And we had some questions earlier by our callers. The first up was a question, and perhaps let me put it to you, doctors. It is around, the question was, I am HIV positive and I have a very low CD4 count. Is it safe for me to breastfeed? And it talks to the whole notion around, because there's a history to it.
Mm-hmm. So as you allude, there is a history, and there was a time when, in many instances, we recommended that HIV-infected women did not breastfeed. However, since 2011, when we looked at the evidence, we realized that our advice was incorrect. And since the Tshwane Declaration of 2011, we have given the same advice to HIV positive and HIV negative women. Of course, for HIV infected women, it is very important that they take their ARVs. It is of concern that this particular mother has a high viral load, and all efforts have to be put in place to reduce that viral load. Mm-hmm. But our advice would still be to exclusively breastfeed the infant for 6 months with ongoing breastfeeding.
Okay. Dr. Motsepe, let me come back to you now on the issue of the way forward. Now, what's your final message now? I mean, in about a minute, to say, how do we carry on this message? How do we make sure that mums that are breastfeeding are protected?
We have to make sure that society knows that for the first 6 months, as we have said, the children should be exclusively breastfed, and thereafter, optimally, up to 2 years while solids are introduced. Let us remember, both men and women have breastfed in their lives, and we need support of everybody in the community to make sure that children are breastfed, because this is the best foundation for any nutrition. Is the best foundation for a child's, one of the best foundations for a child's life. It's also very important that we have to, work against some of the societal barriers, like believing that when a child is breastfed, the parents cannot become intimate, meaning that they cannot resume their normal sexual intercourse. They should continue. And of course, it's very important. HIV positive mothers should breastfeed their children because this is the best option of feeding that they can give their children.
All right. Let me cross to Cape Town and speak to Patricia. Patricia, your final, well, it's not your final, your first. Let's just hear from you in terms of, the way forward. I guess you talk more around, from a perspective of looking at policies. What should happen going forward?
Yes, thank you for that question. The timing is very good. We did a study recently through the Centre of Excellence in Human Development at WITS, where we looked very specifically at the policies that are in place to support breastfeeding and overcome some of the barriers that are in place. And what I want to focus on is the biggest barrier internationally and in South Africa is when women return to the workplace. And it really is a question of rights. Women have a right to be able to breastfeed, and their children have a right to be breastfed. And in order to give effect to that right, what we looked at is what is necessary for that. Having a good law or a policy in place is only one tool that you should have in your toolbox. Policies and laws don't implement themselves. We need to see a massive scaling up of implementation and respect for those laws. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen without a very significant investment in building the systems to support that. And what I mean by that is that we need leadership. We need leadership in government, and we need leadership in the corporate sector.
All right, let's
take ownership.
Yeah. So sorry to cut you in there, but we're running out of time, seriously running out of time. In 30 seconds, from government, what should happen going forward?
So, for myself.
Okay. Now, I think this is, I'm afraid, we've seriously run out of time. This is where we're going to have to leave it. All our guests from Saxo Watch, thank you so much for your time, your valuable input. Folks at home, I'm afraid that's all the time we had for breastfeeding. And I'm Dr. Salome Daung. See you next time, same time on SABC. Until then, please do take care.